October 24th. To most of us, it's just another box on the calendar. Maybe you know it as the day the United Nations was formed. But what if I told you that the real stories of this day are far more dramatic and almost completely forgotten? On this single date, one of history's deadliest wars quietly ended, and moments that literally built the world we live in were lost to time. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the forgotten history of October 24th. Let's go back to the 17th century. Try to picture Europe plunged into chaos for 30 long, brutal years. That was the reality of the 30 Years' War, a conflict so devastating it redrew the map of Europe and reset the course of history. From 1618 to 1648, Central Europe wasn't just a battleground for armies, but for ideals. What started as a religious fight between Protestants and Catholics totally spiraled, becoming a continent-wide power struggle between royal dynasties, territories, and empires. The human toll was apocalyptic. Millions died, not just in battle, but from the famine and disease that stalked the armies like a shadow. Entire regions were left empty, their economies broken for generations. Then, on the 24th of October 1648, something incredible happened. After years of grueling negotiations between over 100 different delegations, the ink finally dried on the Peace of Westphalia. Signed across two different cities, these treaties didn't just stop the fighting, they introduced a revolutionary idea that defines our world to this day: the sovereign state. For the very first time, the principle that a nation has the right to govern itself without outsiders sticking their nose in was formally established. The treaties recognized the independence of the Dutch Republic and gave rulers the right to decide their state's official religion, a huge step toward religious tolerance. While the Pope angrily condemned the agreements, the Peace of Westphalia became the foundation of modern international relations. So, while we remember countless other wars, it was on this day that one of the deadliest conflicts in human history finally ended, and the blueprint for our modern world was quietly drafted. But that's not the only way this date changed the world. Let's leap forward a couple of centuries. Think about the United States in 1861. The nation was being torn apart by the Civil War, with a vast, wild continent separating the east and west coasts. Sending a message from New York to San Francisco was a massive challenge. The fastest way was the legendary Pony Express, a chain of brave riders who could get a letter across the country in about 10 days. It was the absolute pinnacle of 19th century logistics, a symbol of American determination. And on the 24th of October 1861, it became obsolete. On that day, the Western Union Telegraph Company finished the first transcontinental telegraph line, connecting the eastern and western networks in Salt Lake City. The very first official message was a telegram zapped from San Francisco to President Abraham Lincoln, pledging California's loyalty to the Union. In that one moment, a 10-day journey was cut down to a matter of minutes. The continent just shrank. For the first time, a business in California could get live market data from New York. The government could communicate instantly with its armies out west. The impact was so profound that the Pony Express, the icon of the frontier, was shut down just 2 days later. This nearly forgotten event didn't just kickstart a communication revolution. It helped stitch a divided nation together during one of its darkest hours, building the foundation for the connected world we all live in today. While technology was racing ahead, so was human nerve. By the turn of the 20th century, daredevil stunts were all the rage. But one challenge was seen as the ultimate act of insanity: going over Niagara Falls. Enter Annie Edson Taylor. She wasn't your typical stunt performer. By the 24th of October 1901, Annie was a 63-year-old, recently widowed schoolteacher trying to find a way to pay the bills. Believing fame and fortune were waiting for whoever could survive the plunge, she had a custom barrel made from oak and iron, padded it with a mattress, and screwed the lid on tight. In a truly bizarre test run, she sent her cat over the falls in the barrel. The cat made it, which gave her all the confidence she needed. On her 63rd birthday, she climbed into her contraption, was towed out into the Niagara River's current, and set loose. For 17 terrifying minutes, she was thrashed by the rapids before plummeting over the edge of Horseshoe Falls. Rescuers scrambled to get the barrel, expecting the worst. But when they pried it open, Annie Edson Taylor emerged, dazed and with a small cut on her head, but very much alive. She was the first person in history to survive going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. But the fame she craved was short-lived, and the fortune never came. She spent her last years posing for photos with tourists and selling souvenirs, eventually dying in poverty. Her incredible story of courage and desperation on this day is now mostly a footnote, a forgotten tale about the landmark she so boldly conquered. Stories like Annie's are exactly what we mean by forgotten history, amazing human moments that have just faded away. If you think these stories are worth remembering, do us a favor and hit that like button. And if you want to join us for our next trip into the past, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. It really does help us keep digging up these lost histories. Now for a date that many have tried to forget, the 24th of October 1929. The 1,920 seconds had been a wild, decade-long party in America, full of jazz, flappers, and a stock market that seemed like it would never go down. But under all that glamour, the economic floorboards were rotting. Then came Black Thursday. The party atmosphere on the New York Stock Exchange had been replaced with a tense, creeping dread. Suddenly, panic hit. A tidal wave of sell orders crashed onto the floor. Investors who had bought stocks on credit were wiped out in an instant. The ticker tape, the machine that printed stock prices, fell so far behind it became useless, fueling the chaos. By the end of the day, nearly 13 million shares had been sold, a record, and the market was bleeding value. A group of powerful bankers tried to stop the panic by publicly buying up huge amounts of stock, but it was too little, too late. The confidence that had fueled the decade was gone. While the market would crash even harder a few days later, Black Thursday was the moment the music stopped. It was the psychological snap that kicked off the Great Depression, a global economic disaster that would define the next decade with mass unemployment, bank failures, and unbelievable suffering. On this day, the dream of the Roaring Twenties died a very loud and very brutal death. Just 2 years later, on that same date, another huge American drama was coming to a close. This one starring the country's most infamous gangster. During Prohibition, Al Capone ruled Chicago's criminal empire with an iron fist, built on booze, gambling, and bloodshed. He was charming, brutal, and everyone thought he was untouchable. Police knew he was behind countless crimes, but they could never make a charge stick. Witnesses were too terrified to testify, and Capone was too slick to get caught. But the federal government found another way in. They decided to follow the money, A small, obsessed team of Treasury agents started digging through financial records, painstakingly tracing the secret flow of cash from Capone's illegal businesses. It was tedious and dangerous work, but it worked. They couldn't get him for murder, but they could prove he'd earned millions of dollars and never paid a single cent in income tax. On the 24th of October 1931, the final scene played out. Alphonse Al Capone, the untouchable crime lord, was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison for tax evasion. It was a spectacular win for the rule of law. The sentence sent a message across the country: no one is above the law. It also created a powerful new playbook for taking down organized crime. The man who ruled a city with fear wasn't brought down by a gun, but by an accountant's ledger, with his fate sealed on October 24th. Let's end with a more recent and more bittersweet piece of forgotten history. For almost 30 years, one airplane was the absolute symbol of speed and luxury, a vision of a glamorous high-tech future. The Concorde. It was an engineering marvel that could fly from London to New York in under 3.5 hours, cruising at twice the speed of sound. But this dream was incredibly expensive to keep alive, and a tragic crash in 2000 shattered public confidence. The world was changing, and the age of supersonic passenger jets was coming to an end. On the 24th of October 2003, the final commercial Concorde flight landed, bringing an extraordinary chapter of aviation to a close. For the lucky few who flew on it, it was the closest thing to time travel. For the rest of us, it was a beautiful, soaring symbol of human ambition. Its retirement on this day was a quiet moment, but it marked the end of a very specific dream. We actually fly slower now than we did then, and the Concorde sits in museums as a silent monument to a future that never quite arrived its final journey, now just another forgotten piece of October 24th story. From the birth of the modern nations that ended a 30-year nightmare, to the death of a supersonic dream, from a continent being instantly connected, to the day the world's economy fell off a cliff, October 24th is so much more than the anniversary of the United Nations. It's a date stitched together with moments of incredible bravery, quiet revolutions, and world-changing disasters. These events, many of them overshadowed and nearly lost, are critical parts of our shared story. They remind us that history is made every single day in courtrooms, on stock exchanges, and in the skies above, not just in the grand halls of international assemblies. What other forgotten historical events do you think deserve to have their stories told? Let us know down in the comments. We read every single one. Thanks for watching.